Whenever many of us hear the word euthanasia, we first think of an animal being put down for various reasons. Many of us also see this practice as humane and sometimes necessary. However, what if I told you that this could one day not only be used on household pets, but could potentially be offered to some of our dearest friends and family members? Today I will be speaking on euthanasia, otherwise known as medically assisted suicide, and why this should be considered unethical individually and in our hospitals. We will be doing this by going through examples, testimonials, professional opinion, and statistics. Also, we will be looking at 4 main points. Number 1, the slippery slope argument. Number 2, the violation it holds against the long-standing ethical codes of doctors. Number 3, certain social groups at risk. And number 4, the possibility of recovery. For my first argument to support why euthanasia should be considered unethical, we will look at the slippery slope. BBC defines it like this: if we allow something relatively harmless today, we may start a trend that results in something currently unthinkable becoming accepted. There is too great of a risk for something currently unthinkable becoming accepted, especially if we consider that doctors are humans and humans are flawed. And despite best intentions, doctors can be persuaded into turning euthanasia into legalized murder for various circumstances. Dr. Edmund D. Pellegrino, Emeritus of Medicine and Medical Ethics, states it this way: in a society obsessed with the cost of health care, the dangers of the slippery slope are far from fantasy. We can also look at the case of the Belgian twins, Mark and Eddie Verbesian, who were born deaf and recently learned that they were going blind. In an article titled "Belgian Twins Euthanized Because They Had Nothing to Live For," we find out that they were in no physical pain, but were euthanized by a doctor who believed that they were able to do this practice because of psychological issues. For my second point, we will look at how this violates the long-standing ethics codes of doctors. In Ethics for School by Paul Sanders, he states that traditional medical codes have never sanctioned euthanasia, even on request for compassionate motives. We can also take a look at the Hippocratic Oath, which states, "I will give no deadly medicine to anyone if asked nor suggested in such counsel," this code is something that doctors take before practicing medicine. Another code is the International Code of Ethics, which states that a doctor must always bear in mind the obligation of preserving human life from the time of conception to the time of death. Now, the key word here is preserving. The doctor's job is to preserve life, not to end it. By considering euthanasia to be ethical, we would be jeopardizing long-standing codes. For my third point, we will look at how this could possibly cause discrimination to certain social groups. Despite a deep desire in the United States today, we can find areas where there is discrimination in cultural groups, minorities, and other individuals. We can look at an example where a person with good health care with an illness versus an elderly man or woman with the same illness without health care. Now, the first person to be offered euthanasia would probably be the elderly man or woman, simply because they didn't have the resources to continue treatment. For our second point to support this, the New York Task Force states that no matter how carefully any guidelines are framed, the practices will pose the greatest risk to those who are poor, elderly, members of a minority group, or without access to good health care. Again, because they don't have the resources, they may be pressured into euthanasia. For my final point to support why euthanasia should be considered unethical, we will look at how this rules out the possibility of recovery. Jeanette Hall, her story is found on Ravioli Republic. She was diagnosed with 6 months to live. She did not want to suffer. However, her doctor told her to fight for her life. She does live in Oregon where euthanasia is legalized, but she did decide to fight, and now today she is happily alive. You can also look at the statistics by American Cancer Society, which states that more than 13 million people are survivors of cancer. Now, if we all considered euthanasia to be ethical, I believe that number would have drastically decreased, simply because the fight for cancer is tough, and many people would want that way out. In conclusion, we have gone over 4 main points. Number 1, the slippery slope argument. We looked at the Belgian twins, Mark and Eddie Verbesian. Number 2, the violations against the long-standing ethics codes of doctors. We saw the Hippocratic Oath and how it states that doctors' purpose is to fight for life. Number 3, the certain social groups at risk. Number 4, we looked at the possibility of recovery and how we have 13 million cancer survivors in America today. After my presentation, I hope that you will consider to leave euthanasia for our household pets as a sort of mercy killing and not for our family and friends. Thank you. Is that okay?